Hello everyone, it's so good to be here again. So last night I went to see Maestro, as I mentioned in a previous video. I was going to do a video review on that, but honestly I feel like I've been doing so many film reviews, not that I'm complaining, but to change things up a bit, I want to talk about Dave the Diver, a game that I finally just finished this morning. Boy oh boy, what a great game it was. So going into this game, I didn't actually know what I was getting into. I just heard that it's been making a lot of waves, no pun intended actually, in the gaming community. I've been seeing great reviews, but I just assumed it's a fishing game where you play this protagonist as this really overweight diver called Dave, which isn't false, but the game is so much more than it initially appears to be. This probably has to be one of the most versatile games I've played ever, and it leads me to thinking of games like It Takes Two or Inscription, two fantastic games that seem to reinvent themselves continuously throughout the entire runtime. So to go over the basics, essentially, the core of the gameplay indeed is this fishing simulator, which that on its own could be a full game on itself. I'm actually surprised at how polished and well developed this aspect of the game is. The procedural elements of the environment, which are beautiful to look at by the way, and also all the variety of fish and how they react towards the player, it's all seamlessly integrated and it's quite wonderful. But add on top of this roguelike element and these RPG elements where you can upgrade your gear, your harpoon gun, your oxygen tank, how much you can carry, and so forth, and the items / weapons you can find across your playthroughs, which are random and get added into your main roster in really interesting and satisfying ways. The roguelike element is actually super compelling. And to add further on top of that, you have your sushi restaurant, which you're working with this very charismatic master sushi chef, Bancho. That whole part becomes this like almost Cookie Mama like gameplay where you get to manage your employees, what you put on the menu based on your excursions into the deep blue sea, of course, which works as your main source of currency. And when you do fail those excursions, it's quite painful, especially in the early run of the game where you don't have quite as many resources. You do count on this whole sushi restaurant gameplay loop to be your main source of income. And as if that weren't enough on its own already, there's this very anime-like presentation in the cutscenes. They are so deliciously animated, they are hilarious, they are beautifully done, and they're just so exciting and have so much charisma. Whenever I show it to friends, their jaw would hit the floor like, what the hell is this game? You're showing me all these different elements, and it doesn't stop there. I don't want to go too much in detail to, of course, spoil the surprises for you, but there's this really incredible and healthy dose of new elements as they keep adding and adding and adding themselves into the game, and it's actually kind of exhausting to seeing just how many features and systems just keep getting layered and layered and layered on top of this, at least at first blush, this seemingly simple fishing game. There's also a surprisingly decent story to be found here, and additionally this is also a great action game too, and yes, there are boss fights sprinkled throughout the game in some very exciting fashions. Yeah, the game goes guns blazing, it doesn't hold anything back, and I'm genuinely shocked at how polished it all is. Now, as much as I am gushing over the game, I don't think it's perfect. I think its main setback here is in terms of the repetition. For the first few chapters of the game, there won't be any issues whatsoever. The game keeps introducing you to new characters regularly. There are really interesting narrative beats, and all the phone apps you get unlocked at a regular basis early on. I think my favorite has to be the Cooksta app, which is basically a wannabe Instagram thing. That part is hilarious and tastefully done. The initial parts of the game are just so well paced, and you get breadcrumbs of really interesting new features, elements, but in the later chapters of the game, rather than this regular rollout of exciting new content, it does start to feel like a drip feeding of narrative events as your runs through the deep blue sea become longer and longer because you're just that much more well equipped. The moment-to-moment gameplay is engaging, but in terms of the macro loop, it does start to get quite tedious, and there are some missions, especially later on in the chapters, when I just, at that point, honestly, I already had my fill of the game and I just wanted to finish the story. I couldn't move on with the story as fast as I wanted to because it really did feel like they're starting to artificially stretch the gameplay and narrative at that point in time. And to add one little nuance of complaint that I do have about the game, to be noted, I played this on the Switch, which honestly was a perfect companion for my to and fro work commute. But I do feel that the loading times between when you're on the boat or when you want to go to the sushi bar or the other additional areas that get unlocked later in the game, which I won't spoil, those loading times on the Switch at least were quite lengthy. I didn't actually time it, but it felt like it would cross way past the 60-second mark, maybe even going up to 2 minutes of loading time, maybe even more at times. Yeah, it did kind of break the immersion on a regular basis because you do hit that loading screen quite frequently, actually. But honestly, even with this negative feedback taken into consideration, it's really not a deal breaker, because even late in the game when I thought, okay, now I really have seen everything that the game has to offer, it manages to still have plenty of surprises up its sleeves. Even in the end credits, which it doesn't reinvent the wheel exactly, but it is a nice little twist, and it's just a reminder of just how versatile and how exciting and how fresh the game manages to stay. So yeah, this game is an absolute riot. I love this game's explosive and flamboyant personality. It was just such a joy to play. And before I forget, it actually has one of the better soundtracks of any game I've heard this year. I think one of my favorite moments is the soundtrack of the Bancho Sushi restaurant. That was an absolute banger. So yeah, this game rules. It's an easy 9 out of 10 for me. I know that there was some controversy at the Game Awards about this game being included in the indie game category, which honestly, now that I looked into it, I think the criticism actually totally valid. But unless I'm very much mistaken, this is more of a beef with the Game Awards that we have to take up rather than the actual developers, because I don't think we should let that relatively minor controversy hide the fact that this game is an absolute banger and low-key one of the best games this year, regardless if it's indie or not. It just stands head and shoulders above most AAA games as is. Yeah, once again, I'm absolutely floored by the versatility this game has to offer. Go check it out for yourselves. It's an absolute blast. And as far as the Game Awards go, I can't believe that the indie game category was not given a stage for those developers. Honestly, this is probably one of the more important categories they have over there. Up there with best game direction, best art direction, whatnot. And the indie guys are the ones who need the spotlight the most. Anyways, I digress. Regardless, however we want to categorize this game, there's no question in my mind that it is on fire, and once again, it's one of the funniest and most expressive games I've played this year. I love it. You should definitely check it out. And that Dredge Dave the Diver mashup is totally unexpected, but super awesome. I'm all for it. Dredge, by the way, is also another super cool game that you should check out as well. I haven't fully played that game, so I don't know if I'll have a review for that. But yeah, both games are bangers. Go check it out. So that's going to be it for me today. I'm going to be off on the holiday soon, so I might have a bit of a short hiatus from the YouTube channel, but fear not, I'm going to have a lot of big videos coming up very soon, so stay tuned. Until then, wishing you and your loved ones nothing but the best. Take care and talk to you, well, soon enough.